Hello, this is Steve from SDRplay. In this video we're going to show you how to use your RSP to set up a Panadapter for the Kenwood TS-590SG the easy way. So I'm heading over to the HRO store in Plano, Texas to play with some of their equipment and enlist the help of Eddie, who's an expert on using it. So Eddie, how do you find a frequency in use on that band with that radio right now?
Well, the 14280 is a band that is pretty much used. Sometimes when the bands are kind of dead, it's okay, but we still get some low signals coming in through. The 14280 is a frequency that's used a lot.
Okay.
That's why I put it on there to see if I can get somebody. I do hear somebody in the background trying to come in through, but it's very, very low. But we can try to kind of like...
Now I'm a great believer in doing things in easy steps. So first we must verify the radio's working, as Eddie showed us. Next, my recommendation is set up the RSP and SDRuno on a standalone basis and get used to operating the software so that you're familiar with it before we try and set up the interconnects necessary for use as a Panadapter. So for example, here is a typical SDRuno setup. We're working on the 20 meters band, and that only extends from 14 to 14.35 megahertz. So I've chosen a low sample rate of only 2 megahertz and a decimation of 2. That means that the spectrum we see in the SP1 window will be about 1 megahertz. Furthermore, I then zoom in the SP1 window and fill up the entire screen with the range from 14 to 14.35 megahertz. There are several ways to connect an antenna in a Panadapter configuration, but one nice feature that the 590SG offers is the DRV output, which can be configured to be an antenna out, effectively providing a nice clean signal to the RSP without fear of it being overloaded when you press the transmit key. The DRV output can be used in two ways, either to drive an external amplifier or in our case as an antenna out jack. So you will have to go into the menu system and set it up accordingly. Once you've done that, you can press the meter drive button on the front panel and then an asterisk will appear in the display to show that the antenna out function is enabled. For our setup we're using PL259 patch cables. So since the DRV output is an RCA type, we need an adapter to connect it. And here it is ready to go. So now we must take the other end of the PL259 and connect it to the RSP. Since the RSP has an SMA connector, we need another adapter to go from SMA male to the PL259 female. So now we're all hooked up. The next step is to verify that we're still getting good reception with the RSP. Being a modern radio, the 590SG has a USB output on it, and we're able to use that to connect to our PC instead of having to go through some sort of serial to USB converter. Once we plug the device into our PC, we can go into Device Manager and see that in fact we need to install drivers. This is easily done by just allowing Windows to search for drivers, and after a few minutes it will download the drivers and install them for you successfully. You'll notice it's assigned the Kenwood to COM3. We need this for the next step. OmniRig is a superb piece of free software that we can use to easily connect the RSP to the Kenwood. So we search on Google for OmniRig, we find the DX Atlas website, we go there and then down to the download section and download and install the OmniRig zip file. Once installation is complete, we can then proceed to the next step, which is to open up OmniRig and set the configuration for the Kenwood. This is what you see when you open up OmniRig. I selected the Kenwood TS-590 from the drop down and then went to Uno to see if the default settings would work for us. Obviously not, because although we're connected to the OmniRig server, we see a message that the rig is not responding. Once again, going into the menu system on the Kenwood, we find the setting for the USB port and pick the fastest baud rate, which is 115,200. Armed with that information, we then go back to OmniRig and put that in the information as well. In addition, in order to make it work, I changed the number of data bits to 8, parity to none, and stop bits to 1. Going back to the main settings in Uno, the message "rig is not responding" will now be replaced by a message that the rig is connected. Then we go to the RX settings in the VRX settings window. In this box, we want to make sure that we've checked the sync VRX to rig and the sync rig to VRX checkboxes, and also the RX mode, so we know when we're transmitting. And that's all there is to it. So now we can go over to the rig and see if it's working. On the Kenwood, I'm asking Eddie to turn the tuning knob, and meanwhile we'll look at the display in SDRuno, and we see that as he turns the tuning knob, the frequency increments or decrements accordingly. I'm sorry for the bad reflections. Now I'm going to ask Eddie to use the mouse and change the frequency in SDRuno by clicking somewhere on the spectrum display graph. Again, apologies for the reflections, but once he's done that, we go look at the front panel display on the Kenwood, and sure enough the frequency has changed to the frequency we selected in SDRuno. And that's all there is to it. Hopefully you found this informative, and even though we concentrated on one particular radio in this video, the same basic principles apply to other radios as well. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoy your RSP.